Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through this 7-game slate on Monday. Still 7 games, no games canceled, although, the health and safety protocols keep on trucking. A long weekend of NBA projection updating over the Christmas schedule, even with fewer games. It seemed like we were constantly moving players in and out. It seems like that's going to be the thing for the next week or two, as the new testing protocols allow players who were basically listed as out on the injury report to come back in later in the day, which we might have tonight as well. We'll see. But Mike, how are you doing on this fine Monday afternoon?
Doing good. Slept a lot. Started a diet yesterday, so I'm pumped for that. But yeah, feeling pretty good.
Getting a head start on the New Year's diets. I like it. Get like a full week head start.
Got to. Yeah, I like to do it the most from now to All-Star break. My best success on a diet was that stretch, so pretty pumped.
Let's
pretty
do it, man.
For doing it.
Let's do it. All right, let's start with the health and safety protocols. I mean, this is the stuff that we gotta keep our eye on. So let's start with Minnesota, where, man, they're without everybody. Like, no Cat, no Anthony Edwards, no D'Angelo Russell, no Naz Reid. They might get Patrick Beverley back tonight, right? Who else am I missing? Like, who does this team have? Who are they going to be able to play tonight?
Yeah, they have Greg Monroe. So I think that's how bad we are. But so I think that if Beverly and Okogie don't play, I mean, you're talking about seeing a lot of Jake Layman, a lot of McDaniels, a ton of Nathan Knight. We'll see. I think Chris Silva will be ahead of Greg Monroe. Silva's, pretty good. We talked about his permanent stuff. He's kind of like a Vanderbilt, like poor man's version, like really energetic, good rebounder. He might play some power forward for them too if they need to. But yeah, I mean, they're just so shorthanded. So if Beverly doesn't go, I expect to see a lot of Jordan McLaughlin, a lot of Jalen Noel to fill the point guard minutes, some overlap there as well against a team that's, you don't have to worry about defense quite as much, because on the other side, we found out Jason Tatum is out for protocols too. So not having that second big offensive option for the Celtics really kind of changes the strategy for Chris Finch going into this one.
Yeah, and this is, if Beverly and Okogie weren't able to play, that's 8 rotation players that Minnesota would be down, to give some perspective. I guess what I'm saying is, in that scenario, we're completely guessing, other than Malik Beasley. And like, we think, Layman would play a lot because we saw Layman play a lot last time, and McDaniels would play a lot because we saw him play a lot last time. Other than that, it would all be new. I don't know if Greg Monroe is going to go right from off the street to in the rotation immediately. They are very, very shorthanded in the front court. So it's just crazy to think about how, like, this team is not representative at all of the team that we've seen all year long. And you mentioned on the other side of that, Jason Tatum is out, along with Dennis Schroeder, along with Enes Freedom-Cantor as well, talking about, guys that can put the ball in the basket for them. And Marcus Smart is questionable as well. So this is a scenario for Boston. They're going to get Al Horford back, where they could be without a ton of guard depth, right? Like, no Dennis Schroeder, no Josh Richardson already, no Aaron Naismith, possibly no Marcus Smart. You could see a lot of Peyton Pritchard in this game, simply out of necessity. And you'll see a lot of Jaylen Brown. Now, Pritchard played great on Christmas Day. Part of his extended minutes were due to Romeo Langford's early foul trouble. Part of it was just due to Pritchard played really well. And he's played, whenever he's gotten opportunities, he's played pretty well this year. I saw some Celtics fans speculating on Twitter that, Pritchard playing so well could signal kind of, Dennis Schroeder being dangled around the trade deadline type thing, because they really, Pritchard is kind of a better fit, honestly, for the things that they do. So what do you think we see from the Celtics tonight? Do you think this game, the other thing that I would wonder is, do you think this game has substantial blowout risk? Because we've seen, like last night, we saw these teams that were fielding complete G League and bench piece teams just get absolutely throttled. I mean, Detroit was a disaster. Cleveland put an absolute thrashing on Toronto, beat them by like 40 or 50, almost scored 150 points. Do you think that we're headed for something similar tonight with Boston? Like, do you think Minnesota just is going to completely struggle to compete with the lineups that they're putting out there?
It's helpful that they are at home, and it's very helpful that Jason Tatum's out. But I mean, the caliber and depth of, let's see, okay, I thought it was something on lower, something with Billups protocols. But yeah, like I think it's going to be there's some risk, but losing Tatum makes it less likely here. We'll see what's up with Al Horford. We saw he maybe could have played in the last game, but they held him out for another one. So we'll see if he has a minutes cap. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Peyton Pritchard plays a ton. Summer League first team, so obviously he's a baller. But yeah, I think he's going to be a sneaky play against some really weak second unit defenders. Even if he doesn't start, and I'm not expecting him to, I would expect him to start Langford and then starting big. And then yeah, we were talking about Time Lord. We got a big projection on him, but with Grant and with Al Horford as possible pieces to cut into him, that upper, and he played 39 minutes on Christmas, and he's been playing mid 30s lately. So yeah, I think they're going to try to go bigger there, and kind of fill in with Grant as the backup bench big.
And Grant Williams is questionable too, we should note. So it's not
if he should play,
it's not guaranteed that he will return either. So this is a game that we could see just wildly different rotations than anything we've seen all year long. As always, we'll do our best to project it and talk through it on our premium DFS show tonight at 5:00 Eastern. Okay, other COVID health and safety protocol situations. You've got the Atlanta Hawks, who we saw on Christmas. They were decimated by health and safety protocols, and then they threw DeLon Wright into health and safety protocols this morning, and John Collins. Those were two players that played combined almost 70 minutes on Christmas, and they would have played 70 minutes had the game not blown out. So this is a situation where they're super, super thin. The question mark here is Trae Young, because there's a report that Trae Young has been able to get one negative test. You need 2 consecutive negative tests to return. The question, and they have to be 24 hours apart. So the question being, when was that first negative test? We don't know, right? Because if it was this morning or last night after whatever the tip time is tonight, then he's not eligible to play tonight, but he would be eligible to return on Wednesday. And so Trae Young is listed out on the injury report, but there's some speculation that he could potentially return tonight. Let's put that aside and just kind of understand that Trae Young could be back in the mix and make this a little bit more normal. If he's not, things get weird. And how weird do they get, Mike? Who's playing here? What do the lineups look like? What does the roster look like? They still have 10 guys available without Trae.
And yeah, shout out to me for saying in Slack this morning that Trae is going to be a question mark today. But yeah, so it's pretty much you got 2 ball handlers in Skylar Mays and Cat Barber, and then you got 2 true bigs in Clint Capella and Gorgie Yang. You would think you're going to have to start 3 of your 7 kind of wings guys at the other 3 starting spots. So you would think the starting lineup is going to be Skylar Mays, Bogdan, I think Lance Stevenson, and then Cam Reddish at the 4. Which you want to get away with. You want to have kind of length and perimeter defense against the Bulls. So I feel like they have to go that way. Unless they go kind of somewhere way off the board with Shawnee Brown or something like that, Malcolm Hill, whatever. But and then you have Capella and Gorgie Yang, who Yang did play a little bit of 4 with Cat back in the day.
Yes.
So and with Grizzlies as well. So it's on the table. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to want to run Capella up there for that many minutes that they're going to need to do that. So I don't think that Gorgie Yang's going to get too much playing time, but yeah, I think Cam Reddish is going to be super busy. We know Bogdan's minutes. We saw him kind of ramp up to full here. He's going to be a really big ball handler. We saw last year when the Hawks were shorthanded, back in April and May, Bogdanovich was breaking slates. He was so good. So yeah, not the worst matchup. I would say without Lonzo, losing his perimeter
without Lonzo and Caruso.
Yeah, and Caruso, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of upside for Reddish and Bogdan.
I agree there. The one thing that I will note is Bogdan does not look fully healthy to me, and this is something that the projections are not going to be able to capture, but this is their 4th game in 6 days, I believe. And the first of those 4 games, he was on a minutes limit of 16 to 20, right? And he played 22. Then he was supposedly on another minutes limit. They didn't say how much, but he played 26 or 28, something like that. Then he ramped up to 36, right? And in the 30s, and you see the shooting percentage, right? He shot 20% in each of these games. And so our projections aren't going to project him to shoot 20%. I don't know if he's going to shoot 20% tonight or not. But I know that when the guy was on a minutes limit that was pretty light, and is now playing a fourth game in 6 days and has had his minutes ramped up so aggressively, I do wonder how healthy he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a situation where on a big slate, like I had a ton of Bogdanovic on Christmas slate, and I still feel like that was the right play given the information that we had at the time on the slate. But man, like, I don't know, tonight there's probably going to be a lot more values available. And so we'll see where the field goes, but I might be a little bit more hesitant. He's got to play a lot. I just wonder if the efficiency will get there. So you'll get lots of opportunities. And with those many opportunities, you don't have to shoot very well for it to be a pretty good score right off the bat. But just something that I'd note, like, he does not look fully healthy to me.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that we think that this, like, if Trey doesn't play, we both think that spread's like misleading. It's a 6-point spread.
Yeah.
I think it's down a little bit now with the Trey news. So there's
more
blowout.
I mean, the way that I see this is the Hawks have 4 NBA players on their roster, and 2 of them are centers that they could play together, but leads to a lot of different issues. One, the Bulls play very small generally. So playing Jeng and Capella together against them. Now, the Bulls did struggle scoring against Cleveland when Cleveland played their massive big. So maybe you do that. You go to a zone or something like that, especially without Lonzo with a little bit less shooting. But as you said, that puts a huge strain on Capella. Capella would have to play like 34, 36 minutes, something like that. And the Bulls have guys that can get into the mid-range with Levine and DeRozan. So usually those guys are zone busters in a lot of ways because they're effective and then they can draw and kick. So I don't think they play a lot of Capella and Jeng together, but those are 2 of their 4 best players. The rest of the guys on the team are G Leaguers. They're not NBA players. I mean, some of these guys are borderline G Leaguers. So I was also surprised. It is a road back-to-back for Chicago that the Bulls are only favored by 5.5. Bulls are without Lonzo and Caruso, but it's still like they still have Levine, DeRozan, Vooch. That should be enough if the Hawks don't have Trae Young. Again, we'll see if the Hawks have Trae Young tonight.
Yeah, Levine looked freaking great yesterday. Scored 30.
I mean, these guys. The other thing about the Bulls is these guys are all super fresh. So I know it's like a road back-to-back, but they had a week off. So I think it's a good spot for the Bulls tonight. I'm a little bit hesitant on some of the Hawks, but they're going to project well because they're just so shorthanded. All right, let's talk about the Hornets, who have been doing the protocol hokey pokey. I mean, it's now hit the whole team, right? Like we had,
I think so,
7 to 10 days ago, we were playing tons of Hornets because they were down to like 8 guys. They were without LaMelo, they were without Rozier, they were without Plumlee, they were without Ish Smith, they were out all these guys, and now you add in Bridges and PJ Washington. And it's like the guys who didn't catch it the first time have it now and are out. So what do you think the Hornets rotations look like tonight?
I think it's just Gordon Hayward. I think Gordon Hayward missed 1 game, which is pretty crazy. But this one's pretty easy, I feel like. Borrego really likes Ish Smith. So I think you're going to have kind of your kind of core 4 of LaMelo, Rozier, Hayward, and then probably, Plumlee would be kind of in that. Sorry, let me take that back. Oubre would be the 4th guy. Those stars are going to play a ton. And then Plumlee should get pretty good minutes. And then Ish and Jalen McDaniels should be really, really solid, high upside minutes, depending on how it goes. But those 2 guys will really make it a strong 7-man. And then you're going to kind of fill in with your Nick Richards, with a little bit of maybe James Bouknight, maybe we see Vernon Carey, maybe we see somebody like that. But those guys aren't really relevant. But the key here is just Rozier, LaMelo, Hayward, and Oubre are going to play a ton in a dream matchup against a team that bleeds perimeter scoring. So a lot of really, really high upside, high-paced game. Those 4 Hornets could go ham. I don't know what Jalen McDaniels' price is, but he's someone I'd be looking at as well.
Yeah, it's a spot where we've seen the Hornets be really willing to play these super tight rotations where they only play like 7 guys. And they have 7 guys that they're still pretty comfortable with. So if they can, scrunch together an 8th man with like a few minutes for JT Thor, a few minutes for Nick Richards, you've got the other 7 that you should feel pretty comfortable with. And guys like McDaniels, guys like Plumlee that have not had big price increases because they were out with health and safety protocols before, and now are getting the benefit of PJ Washington and Bridges, players that kind of play their types of positions, should be players that should see an increase in value and potentially are underpriced in DFS spaces tonight. Okay. Phoenix so far, it's just Jay Crowder, right? That's been ruled out with health and safety protocols.
Alfred Payton, yeah.
Alfred Payton too, sorry.
Yep.
Apologies to all Alfred Payton fans, friends, and family. And they are without head coach Monty Williams as well. So the question here is like, I feel partially responsible for this because I joked in our Slack that Phoenix has gone 2 years without being impacted by this stuff. And like Fauci should be investigating whatever's going on in Phoenix to figure out how to eliminate and eradicate COVID. But here it is. Yeah. Jay Crowder is out. Alfred Payton is out. I think this is a pretty straightforward one, as is now, where Cam Johnson just slides into that Jay Crowder role and Jalen Smith, picks up some minutes. But Shamet and Payne should really benefit as well in terms of picking up extra minutes because the bench for Phoenix is a little bit shaky. I think Jalen Smith or Ish Wainwright probably get that last kind of spot in the rotation. But I don't think it makes a huge impact from a DFS perspective. Cam Johnson certainly will play a lot more minutes, so will Shamet and Cam Payne, but I think they'll all be kind of fringy relative to some of the other value that emerges when teams are decimated.
Yeah, I'm with you. Interesting matchup against Jaren Jackson on the other side. You're going to have Mikal on John Morant, so you're going to give up that size and put Cam on him. I think you kind of have to because, Jalen Smith isn't an NBA player. And, low key, losing Alfred Payton, if you are playing this game in a blowout, like that makes it more likely Cameron Payne could get the blowout minutes to possibly put him on the table. So if he's getting, normally a 16-17-minute rotation and gets all the garbage time without Chris Paul and Booker, he could really clean up late. If just something to think about.
I would be surprised if the game blew out, but certainly there's more ceilings to some of these bench guys for it. All right, Portland, they are getting hit with stuff as well. They just signed right before we went on the air. You noted that they had just had a transaction where they signed Reggie Perry, and we honestly think that Reggie Perry is going to have to play tonight because they don't have enough bigs. They threw in Yusuf Nurkic and Cody Zeller. Zeller had been hurt anyway, but into protocols, and that leaves the bigs that they have as Larry Nance Jr. and then Greg Brown. Basically, Watford is in protocols too, right? So,
which is huge. Like, it's so bad that Trendon Watford being in protocols is like super relevant. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, and Covington is out. So, not just fives, 4 5s, the power forwards and the centers, they're really, really thin at. So, this could be a spot where Larry Nance has to play a ton. Also, Damian Lillard's questionable on the injury report as well. So, you could have a scenario here where it's no Dame, it's no CJ, it's no Nurkic. And there's not a lot of shot creation on this team left over. Yeah. So you could see Norm Powell posting usage rates into the 30s. It's just kind of a mess. So talk us through what you think Portland will look like tonight with or without Dame.
Yeah, they haven't played since Tuesday. So I think Dame just said, had some time off, I guess you would think, and he's going to be back, you would think, but you never know. But yeah, you nailed it. They're going to have to play Larry Nance the most amount of minutes he could play. He's going to be a pretty good play here and a pretty good matchup. Nazir Little's played a lot of 4. I think he's going to be the key man for the 4 spot there. Then they're going to have to probably start Tony Snell just because they're going to need to put some minutes somewhere. At least he's got some size. Could throw him out there. He'd probably get the Kristaps assignment. Norm Powell, stupid amount of minutes regardless. And then if Dame doesn't play, he's going to chuck it. And then they have Anthony Simons off the bench. So, but it's just they're going to have to play so small, given the resources in this rotation right now.
They also don't have resources to play. They have nothing. Yeah. There's no Mac.
Well, they have CJ Ellaby. They
have, this is the thing we're talking about. Talking about pretty questionable options. So, if Dame is out, Anthony Simons might take 30 shots tonight. They just don't have a lot of other guys who can create shots for themselves. Larry Nance Jr. should play as much as he can handle from a foul perspective. So really big upside for Larry Nance Jr. As long as he can stay out of foul trouble tonight. But yeah, this is this is a team where you look through the injury report right now, Covington, Lillard, McCollum, Nurkic, Zeller, that's 5 or 6 guys that are normal rotation pieces for them. McLemore is a borderline rotation piece for them. Dennis Smith Jr. is the backup to Lillard if Lillard was to miss. So you're getting really, really deep into the weeds in terms of the guys who could potentially play here. It's tough. We might see more signings. I wouldn't even be surprised if we saw more signings and guys that have to play right away for Portland tonight.
Well, they signed 3 guys, but the problem that all the 3 guys they signed aren't bigs. They signed wings and guards, and then all of a sudden, Nurk, bam. So they were able to sign Reggie Perry. So Reggie Perry, those 3 signed are pretty much irrelevant in my opinion. relative to the Nurkic situation. So
Yeah.
we're going to see some Reggie Perry minutes, I think, like for sure. Assuming he's cleared and everything, I mean, he's going to have to play.
Yeah, it would be him or Greg Brown, I think. And you might have to play them both because you might have to cover some Nance minutes at the 4 just to get through things. Okay, let's talk about some other injury situations. The Rockets, Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green are both questionable. We have not seen Kevin Porter Jr. for a while. We did see Jalen Green come back last week. This game has the highest total on the slate. Houston and Charlotte by like a wide margin. It's in the 230s. So it's a great game environment to attack, but we don't really know what Houston's going to look like. The good news is it's one of the first games on the slate. So we should get this information early. And Houston's not been one of the teams to mess around with stuff this year in terms of late reporting or non-reporting. So what are your thoughts on what Houston looks like tonight and the chances of a KPJ return?
Yeah, to your point, number 30th defense and number 29th defense this month against the really fast Hornets team. So insanely good game environment. So the back-to-back's noteworthy here. Kevin Porter Jr. mentioned has been out with that quad injury. And last week, Steven Silas said they kind of have a plan to integrate them back in here. So that feels like to me, they kind of knew this back-to-back coming would be a spot to, rest Jalen Green. They don't want to rush him back. They don't want to aggravate a hamstring injury, most likely injury to be aggravated. On top of Kevin Porter Jr. will integrate him. So the plan to me seems pretty simple. Sit out one today, sit out one tomorrow. Yeah. But they do have the depth. They did call up Knicks today. So if they wanted to we want to have chemistry together, bring them both back together, have chemistry that way, whatever. So whatever it is, I feel like there's a plan. But it just makes more sense to me to sit one out in each. So, we'll still see Eric Gordon get a pretty good amount of minutes. Jalen Green does have like a long ramp-up plan, according to Steven Silas. So even though they've been off for a little bit, I wouldn't expect him to climb up from this 25 to like the full 36. So that's something to consider as well. Also worth noting, DJ Augustine's not out there. So there's still going to be minutes for Josh Christopher, Armani Brooks. Like they've got enough bodies here, even without DJ.
I think that's the other thing to consider when thinking about Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. in terms of ramping them up. They've really liked what they've seen from Christopher and Armani Brooks, and I think they want to find ways to continue getting those guys minutes regardless. So I don't think it's a situation where the Rockets are going to go right back to playing these like really tight rotations that they were playing early in the season when they were in competitive games. You could get Kevin Porter Jr. up to 36, 37 minutes. I just don't think that's going to be the case simply because they need to create the playing time for Armani Brooks and for Josh Christopher because they got good looks at those guys. Now, the good news is, in terms of trying to create that playing time, no DJ Augustine, as you alluded to, no Garrison Matthews either. And Garrison Matthews is basically the role that Armani Brooks is playing, just a little bit more size, but not a ton. So I think that one's fairly straightforward. In terms of other injury reports that haven't filed yet, are we still without the Spurs, the Clippers, and the Grizzlies? Have any of those come in while we've been waiting?
Yes, we are. I think so.
Okay. So in terms of those, like we saw with the Spurs, we saw DeJounte Murray go on health and safety protocols yesterday. So who knows if there are more coming? We will find out later in the day, I assume.
Yep.
Grizzlies have had some impacts there as well. So we'll see with them. And then the Clippers, they played really tight rotations last night. Luke Kennard got into foul trouble, which really screwed things up for them. And I would expect, as long as they're in competitive games, I think that's going to be the case because they are pretty shorthanded. I don't know if they'll get Marcus Morris back tonight. He had cleared protocols, but was held out for conditioning last night. You wonder if one day later his conditioning is good enough to play, but it's also might be a situation where they just try to ease minutes off guys. The good thing is here so far right now, as long as they're not ceding any more injuries to players, they have enough bodies. They could have played Justice Winslow more last night. They could have played Keon Johnson more. So if they need to scale, if they need to keep Marcus Morris out, they still have enough bodies to be able to kind of make this all work.
Yeah, and I mean they want to play their young kids too. They want to play Keon Johnson more. They want to play Brandon Boston Jr. more.
Yeah.
Last game of the night, man. I mean, there's a chance Bledsoe rests. There's a chance, definitely a pretty good chance Batum rests. Marcus Morris did warm up yesterday, so
I think if Morris is available, Batum doesn't play, is my guess.
I think so. I think that's what I was saying in matchups too. So that's all. Yeah, but we'll see. But yeah, Clippers, man, the Clippers. We said this for years now. Just the Clippers having the last game on the slate is
they're always they're always a wild card in terms of the injury
Yep.
reporting. The Clippers in Philadelphia, any place that Doc Rivers has coached, has a stink on it in terms of injury reporting. So, okay, are there any other injury situations that you wanted to cover that I missed in this conversation?
I mean, just keep an eye on John Morant for the back-to-back. I think that's kind of goes without saying. I don't think any surprises are coming for the Spurs. Just keep an eye on who starts. I think Lonnie Walker starts just because I think Devin Vassell makes more sense to kind of keep with Jordan Clarkson in those minutes. So I would expect Lonnie to start over KBD. You want a little bit more quickness and length against the Jazz with how they shoot the three ball. But yeah, I'm sure we won't be done by the time we pop on in a few hours.
As is always the case.
5. Yeah, always. It always happens like right before we come on too.
The NBA always has new surprises for us to try to adjust to and try to do the best we can of predicting the future in a very uncertain health and safety protocols world right now. So thank you for tuning in today. We'll be back again tomorrow at 2:00 Eastern here on the YouTube channel, covering all the NBA injury report analysis that we have with all the health and safety protocols analysis as well. If you're a subscriber to Established Run's NBA DFS premium content, we'll be going live at 5:00 Eastern this evening to cover the DFS components of this slate, along with any additional injury information that breaks. If you're not a subscriber to our DFS content, we are running a holidays sale in terms of subscribing. So check out over at Established Run's NBA subscribe tab. You can find out all the deals that we're running for the holidays with reduced rates on our props packages, on our DFS packages, so on and so forth. If you're interested in joining us, now is a great time to do so with a little bit of a reduced rate. Also, if you are not a subscriber, please at least subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you get notifications whenever we go live. Also helps us continue to grow this audience and provide the free content that we are doing each and every weekday here. So for Mike and myself, I want to wish you guys best of luck in enjoying your NBA night. We'll see you tomorrow.